Welcome to Splatoon 3, home of squids, kids, and other stuff. I'm honestly not that much of a Splatoon connoisseur, but I do enjoy taking on the occasional challenge, so here's a video looking to answer the question, how many jumps does it take to beat Splatoon 3's Hero Mode? For reasons that we will get into, the Hero Mode is a bit busted, so you don't actually have to play all that much to reach the credits, so I will be splitting this video into two parts. First, we will discuss how many jumps it takes to complete a normal playthrough, and then we'll go through and discuss each level one by one. Before that, let's get the rules out of the way. For the purposes of this video, a jump is when you press the B button to gain height in either kid or squid form. When you dismount a ride rail, your character gets boosted into the air. That's fine because it doesn't use the B button. Same with using the launch pad, which doesn't use the B button. For any other niche situation, I'll try to clarify my stance. Just know I'm not here to argue semantics, but instead experience the game in a new and challenging way, and hopefully you'll find this kind of interesting. With all that said, Hero Mode kicks off by following Cap'n Cuttlefish to the crater. It's covered in a lot of fuzzy ooze, which is kinda lethal. If infused with power eggs, our buddy Small Fry can be flung at the fuzzballs to eat and clean away that specific patch of ooze. And we can collect power eggs in the various levels, accessible via the kettles. The 4 levels in the crater are all pretty simple and straightforward. There's a goal at the end, and you gotta navigate platforms, splat Octarians, and complete puzzles as necessary. While the second mission does mention that we unfortunately own a jump button, none of these levels actually require any jumping. Walking and swimming through ink is more than enough. After clearing our way to the bottom of the crater, DJ Octavio arrives in search of his missing underlings. We're forced to fight because Cap'n Cuttlefish is kinda losing it and won't listen, but it's not too difficult. I'd make a joke about his robot sucking, but I think that'd be too on the nose. Afterwards, the ground is broken apart by the fuzzy ooze, and we fall down into what's known as Alterna. We also come face to face with his challenge's true nemesis, small ledges. Like the majority of the islands or sites that we will be traversing, the terrain here is made up of surfaces that can and cannot be inked. The rocky wall is one such uninkable surface. Thankfully, it is possible to bypass these ledges without jumping. It's a bit finicky and super easy to mess up, but it is possible to swim up the bottom edge and get just enough height for the game to consider you swimming against the upper edge. Hopefully it makes sense when you look at it. I ended up using this trick frequently throughout Alterna's various sites, but just know that I'm not crazy. This can be very hard to do and take a lot of time, so after I got footage and confirmed a specific spot's viability, I just jumped it if necessary for later visits. This is very much a segmented run, you know? All that said, beyond, we encounter Kelly and Mari, aka Agents 1 and 2. I can't tell if the captain is bored or upset, but I appreciate that they go along with the Ginyu Force-esque gestures all the same. After a bit more tutorial and exposition, we're let loose to immediately run into another roadblock. The first level's kettle is blocked off by some uninkable ledges, and right now the only power eggs available are within that first level. I should note that you can talk to this stuffed Zapfish to relive memories and return to the crater, but power eggs collected in the crater on our initial or later visits do not carry over to Alterna. So we have to jump, or we can blow open the kettle, go to the menu, hover over the kettle's icon, and jump. Whatever. That's one on the board. As for said mission, it's not too bad, but an issue arises when we go to collect the keys, which are sitting atop small uninkable cubes. I thought this meant that the level was unfortunately impossible without jumping, so I instead opted to grind out power eggs by quitting out of the level and re-entering, which works because power eggs are saved across deaths and regardless of if you complete the level. But when I revisited much later, I realized it's possible to use your special, Splashdown, to just barely clip the hitbox, which I think extends over the edge of the cube. I actually don't know why this works, but it does. So we can collect all 3 keys and do this level without jumping. That's cool and all, but what's more important than the actual mission is the power eggs, which ties into what I meant when I said that Hero Mode is kind of busted. You see, while there are 6 islands filled with a bunch of missions, you only need to clear the way to the 3 boss kettles located on Site 2, 4, and 6. The only thing standing in the way is a bunch of fuzzy ooze. I know it's pretty lame, but you can grind your way through even the very first level to amass enough power eggs to reach the final sequence. That's why I will discuss every level afterwards. On the topic of farming, there's plenty of options, though I have no clue what would be considered optimal. I did spend some time replaying What Caused the Big Bang? You! located on Site 1, as you just have to shoot a single target, netting 300 eggs per successful run. Not to brag, but I got my personal best down to just 2 seconds, but that's not mindless enough for me. During the Site 3 mission, Ink Wheels experienced tomorrow's technology today. Why are all these titles so long? I found that I could infinitely farm power eggs by setting the A and shoot buttons to turbo using my USB controller and wrapping a rubber band around the analog stick so that my character would constantly shoot the wheel in front of them, walk off the ledge, die, respawn, infinitely. I think I took a nap and I got like something like 17k eggs. Again, it's lame, I get that, but it's very possible to get power eggs without ever experiencing most or maybe even any of the levels.
Also, this happens.
But oh my god, what's wrong with your face?
Traversing across an unfuzzed Site 1 is fairly easy, same with popping open and traveling through the pipe to Site 2. Unfortunately, our nemesis reappears on the other side, a ledge. Despite being just a couple feet off the ground, this is entirely impassable. The barriers on the left and right cannot be climbed on. There's just really nothing I could find to get any upwards height other than jumping, so one jump is needed to reach Site 2 proper. To get to the boss kettle, all we have to do is run along the ground and activate this ink rail. Like I might have mentioned before, dismounting these gives you a little bit of upward momentum without pressing the B button, which is completely valid. And it actually lets us get all the way up to the kettle, assuming that we move directly towards the kettle from the last ink rail. As for the boss, it has us going up against one of the deep cut trio.
That's right. Believe it or not, there was a time in my life when even I had trouble making and keeping friends.
Because of the way you look?
The way
Yeah, all sort of lumpy, red raw.
I don't think
It's
that
more like
person's
an old
choice.
person's finger.
Reminds me of an infection I had.
Or was it the voice?
Looks like a tumor.
I know, it's because you've got beady eyes like a rat.
Or you're just generally unlikable in a way that's hard to pin down.
She uses the remains of an octostomp filled with eels. It's a bit challenging inking the side of the cube and swimming up to shoot her before the window of opportunity closes without jumping, but it is possible. After Fry goes blasting off like Team Rocket, the true boss appears. Another ledge. It rings the entire boss arena and it is uninkable, blocking us from our goal. If you're curious, the Splashdown special does not give you any movement in the air, so it doesn't help us here, so we must perform one jump to reach the exit. We're then rewarded with a piece of junk treasure, which will prove useful later. Afterwards, we find ourselves back at the Squid Sisters camp on Site 1, which means getting back to Site 2 would either take a manual jump or a menu jump. Either way, I'll add it to the counter. As we head through Site 2 towards Site 3, there is a ledge blocking us from the travel pipe, but thankfully we can do the perpendicular wall thing I mentioned earlier, no problem. At Site 3, again, we have to jump over the first ledge, and then heading through the island, it's pretty standard once the fuzz is cleared away, though the ice physics is a little annoying to navigate. On the other side, we come to a choice of pipes. The left pipe takes us to Site 4, while the right pipe takes us to Site 5. Since there's a boss at Site 4, we have to go there, which is an extra bonus. This site has no evil ledge blocking our path. Then from the main part of the island, we can ink some storage containers to get up, and then perform a couple easy swim climbs to reach the next boss kettle. Within, we face off against Shiver and Master Mega. The fight is a bit more challenging than the previous boss, mainly because we can't jump out of the way or over attacks, but still it's very doable without jumping, and even better, this arena has no ledge to hold us back from collecting the treasure. Awesome. Afterwards, it takes one menu jump to return to Site 4, one more jump to bypass the Site 5 ledge.
Oh, also this is how you can navigate across Site 5 without jumping.
Hope you don't mind some more artificial voices because I'm too lazy to record myself.
Why is this an option?
And another jump to get over the Site 6 ledge. Afterwards, these 3 ink rails, a bit of ink climbing, and one last ink rail gets us to the boss. Look, it's everyone's favorite large guy, Big Man. Rather than working with a summon like the previous two bosses, this already massive dude turns into a gargantuan lad in an obvious reference to Manta Storm, that one Super Mario Sunshine boss fight against Phantom Manta. Much like with Manta Storm, avoiding Big Man and his ever-increasing brigade of bountiful bros without jumping can be pretty challenging. You just gotta maintain your terrain, avoid damage for as long as you can, and eventually... Afterwards, one more jump is needed to exit the arena. Collecting this last treasure again returns us to the Squid Sisters camp, which is fine because now Callie, Mari, and the captain work together using these 3 treasures to create the world's most unsafe hair trimmer? This clears the way, allowing us to blast over to the alternate space center, home to the final levels and ending boss sequence. The entrance level has us carefully navigate through some rooms and puzzles with only small fry as our equipment. While jumping might help in some spots, it's not required at all. Back outside with our gear, we can walk around and down to a pipe for the mission Alterna Space Center hangar. This is a sort of gauntlet of enemy encounters with canned specials scattered along the path, and we could either walk or swim our way through to the very end. On our way to the next level, it's important that we dismount the ink rail by letting go of ZL and falling to the right onto the metal roof. This lets us walk around and fall onto the vent entrance rather than having to jump as the game would expect. As for the level itself, it's an on-rails elevator ride that took me a few attempts, totally jumpless though. We can then walk and swim our way into the Spirit Lifter steerage, which is a winding path that takes us up and around the rocket. Unfortunately, there is this spot before a checkpoint that is too far to swim and fall to, so we must perform one jump to get to the other side. The rest of the way to the inky launch pad is fine. We now find ourselves inside the Spirit Lifter First Class. While this looks like a daunting level full of jump-based verticality, we actually get to use the Zipcaster, allowing us to stretch Armstrong Spider-Man our way up to the top without ever actually jumping. Back outside, we do a bit of running up a winding ramp as we hear a conversation between Cuttlefish and the Big Bad. At the top is a ledge. I wasn't kidding when I said it's the true nemesis. I spent about a half an hour in this area, testing every corner and ledge I could rub my squid face against, but nothing helped to get up and over the metal tripping hazard. There's just no option, so it takes one jump to activate the next cutscene.
Yo! Oh no! Anyway.
All Icebear's friends are future enemies.
Command, we have a 40-foot tall bear hanging from our rocket.
Don't worry, you are clear for launch.
Icebear is fast and furious.
Full throttle, Torpedo!
This multi-stage boss fight against Mr. Grizz has a fairly simple setup. We're on a rocket hurtling through Earth's outer atmosphere, and we must collect all of the golden power eggs so that Small Fry can consume each fuzzball that stands in our way. The first blocks the path, with the next appearing on Mr. Grizz's body after a bit of inking. The next is a bit trickier as Mr. Grizz starts spinning the rocket underneath us. While there are some spin cycles that I think can be avoided, it's more trouble than it's worth the try. After taking out the second body of Boyle, we're forced to perform some platforming. I thought we were forced to jump over to the platform, destroy the gooseberry, then jump back, but inking the platform and swimming off at full speed works fine, so add one jump to the counter. From there, it takes a few more golden power eggs and some splatting to make Mr. Grizz very mad. He then breaks apart the rocket's outer shell, leading to this scene. We must now pilot DJ Octavio's mech through space to vacuum up all of Mr. Grizz's fuzzy ooze, while Huge Fry keeps him busy, and we only have 3 minutes before all life on Earth is turned into mammalians. I gotta say, this is pretty ridiculous, which makes it a pretty fun sequence. It's also generally challenging, especially if you don't have that one upgrade for improving the shield regeneration time. So I did die quite a few times. When you do die, you're treated to a properly apocalyptic sequence. Thankfully, there is no jumps required, though they would definitely help in avoiding damage from the octo stamps. For them, quick inking and maybe use of splashdown can help survival rates.
Goodbye, cruel world.
In the end, Mr. Grizz and his plan has been thwarted, Huge Fry returns to small form, and everyone celebrates the return of the great Zapfish. Though I'm not sure why it's now more of a black color rather than a bright blue, but I'm sure that's nothing. And credits. So, in short, it takes 12 jumps to beat Splatoon 3's Hero Mode. Of course, we're not quite done. As promised, let's now go back and look at every single level one by one. For each, I will show on screen the site and mission number, and whether it's accessible via the overworld and completable jump lists. Let's get going. For Site 1, Mission 1, as I mentioned earlier, I thought this would require 3 jumps, but it actually is possible jumpless thanks to Splashdown. In Mission 2, a single jump is required to reach this key. Nothing else worked. Mission 4 would require a jump if you did it normally, but I found it's possible to skip a key entirely by timing a curling bomb just right here, so it activates a switch, otherwise out of reach. I felt so smart figuring this out. In Mission 7, you're forced to jump twice to get past the rotating platform, as we cannot get any ink onto the platform itself. You can spread ink without a weapon by swimming onto the edge of an ink puddle and sort of splashing it, but this doesn't work on walls nor spread from the ground to a wall. Oh well.
Mission 10
is an interesting one, as I have no concrete answer to how many jumps it would take. Since I couldn't find a way to cheese it, you would have to time your jumps to go over as many shockwaves simultaneously, while also letting yourself get hit occasionally to avoid jumps, but not so much that you die. The lowest I sort of got was like 15-ish, but 21 was my actual attempt. So somewhere in there, I encourage you to try it out yourself and let me know your personal best. In Site 2 Mission 3, you have to jump just once to go forward after collecting this key. It's slightly too far to just swim. During Mission 5, it takes 2 jumps to cross these gaps in the crab tank. As mentioned, the first boss located in Site 2 requires 1 jump to reach the goal. In Rail Pass, it takes just 1 jump to get past the first set of rails. In the mission full of Octohoppers, it takes 1 Squid Hop to get over the green blocks at the end. and 1 jump is needed for this part in sight for mission 4. During Easy Ride Tricky Targets, you're told to jump between rails, but the forced dismount at the end of each rail works fine to let you fall left or right to reach the next rail. Flying Worst Class isn't too bad, as you can either fall or swim onto the various blimps platforms because they can be inked even on the edges. Unfortunately, 2 jumps are required right about here to cross this gap twice. Everything else is fine. During Barriers Got You Covered, it takes 1 jump to get onto this elevator. If the edge was inkable, we'd be able to swim, but we can't. In Site 5 Mission 7, you have to hop back and forth between rails. These are so far apart that you have to jump for a total of 7 times. Shooter on Rails initially seemed to have the same issue. Turns out it's close enough that you can reach nearby rails by moving left or right while holding ZL, which makes you move slightly faster than grinding in kid form. The only issue is that the first part, you run out of rail to jump onto, and also you sort of run into the pole, so 1 jump is required. Perhaps the most frustrating mission for this video is Site 6 Mission 5, The Enemy Ink is Lava. Within, we are tasked with using curling bombs to ink a path through a bunch of purple, icky paint-like goop. It's fatal. It's pretty straightforward until you get to this part where you have to angle it correctly and time it so both you and the bomb get past the octawasher. The final checkpoint, though, is pure agony. The way the walls are laid out, you can aim the bomb around the outside or through the middle. I tried and tried, but doing on the outside path results in the bomb never getting close enough to create a full, uninterrupted path to the goal wall. If you aim through the middle, you have to ping-pong the bomb over the moving brushes, which does mess with its trajectory, in such a way that it explodes, inking the space between these 2 pre-made puddles. I did attempt after attempt, and I finally somehow nailed the throw, allowing me to reach the final stretch without jumping. Spoilers, I then immediately messed it up and died. Like I said before, this is very much a segmented run. Here, we have to navigate past these 2 octo washers to grab this refuel, which isn't too bad. And then get past 2 more washers for the final launch pad, which is very bad. The window of opportunity to get both yourself and the bomb past is extremely narrow, and dying means redoing the previous 2 little bits, which can get real tedious. Long story short, I was able to get through and get to the launch pad with just a single jump, but I feel like given perhaps the right angle, or I'm just kidding, get absolutely pranked. As I was writing this script, I had an idea. I went back to this part and I literally nailed it on my first try. During mission fly fishing, we have constant use of the inkjet. While being up so high would seem like it would make platforming irrelevant, we lose altitude over pits very quickly, so most of the gaps are just possible without using the mid-air jump boost jump thing. As far as I can tell, just one jump is required right about here. And to wrap this up, it takes a small jump to bypass the medium ledge after fighting Big Man. With all that said, we can combine all of these jumps into a number that I definitely know before editing the video to recheck my math, so it takes
65
jumps to beat all of Hero Mode. Except, not really. As you might know, completing every mission once, you actually unlock a golden kettle back near camp that leads to the secret bonus extra hard level. Have no fear. I have also braved this challenge, but it's so long that we'll end things here and look at that level in the soon-to-be uploaded video. How many jumps does it take to beat Splatoon 3's hardest level, coming to a YouTube near you? Thank you for watching. Big thanks to my members for their support, and a manta-sized thanks to Captain Crayfish for being a super fan. If you enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, maybe subscribe to get notified when the next video goes live. Just know that I only have a few Splatoon videos on my channel, but perhaps you'll like some of my other content. That's it for this one. Thank you for watching again. Bye-bye.